We are officially 1 week away from the free agency and re-sign phase in the NHL. It's time we turn and look to see what players the Carolina Hurricanes could bring back for next season.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I am the Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I do some AHL coverage over at the Calder Times. I'm the host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a fun show for you guys on a Monday edition of the show, as we are now going to start talking about restricted free agents and unrestricted free agents for the Carolina Hurricanes and what potential deals could come their way and some projected salary ideas, and just seeing who the Hurricanes have, coming up that on July 1st are going to be in under different circumstances of what their off seasons are going to look like, and see if maybe the Hurricanes could bring them back. And we're going to start off with some restricted free agents in Jack Drury, Seth Jarvis, and Martin Necas. But before we get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So like I said, we're going to start looking at some restricted free agents and what potential projected deals that they could be looking at this offseason. Possibly, do we see the Hurricanes are going to be, see they're able to bring them back? And we're going to kick this thing off when talking about Jack Drury. Now, if you see my latest article that came out on Sunday talking about Jack Drury and why the Hurricanes should bring him back for the 24-25 season, I'll leave a link in the description on the YouTube and in the podcast form as well. If you haven't checked it out, make sure to go check that out when you can. And for Jack Drury, he is the, 42nd overall pick by the Carolina Hurricanes in the 2018 NHL entry draft. He is 24 years old. He is a center. He just actually finished his entry-level contract that was $925,000 per season that he signed back in July of 2021 when Don Waddell was the general manager of the Hurricanes. It was a 3-year, $2.775 million deal. He is going to be a restricted free agent, but he is arbitration eligible. So be curious to see if the Hurricanes go and see if there's possible arbitration, or do we see a deal beforehand to get taken care of. This past season for 23-24 was actually Jack Drury's first full season with the Canes. He did play 74 games. Had to deal with some injuries throughout the season. For the most part, he had 8 goals, 19 assists for 27 points, finished with a +4 on the regular season. Did have 33 penalty minutes where he did get into some fights during the regular season. In the playoffs, he actually had 1 goal, 4 assists for 5 points, and it was a +7 in 11 games. So really stepped up huge for the Hurricanes during the playoffs. And the thing with Jack Drury is that fact that he's no stranger to putting up points wherever he's at. I know when he played over in the SHL with Vaxo Lakers, he actually had 10 goals and 20 and 30 points in 41 games. In the playoffs, he had 5 goals, 6 assists for 11 points in 14 games for them. And also, if you look back at how he played in his last season at Harvard, he got 20 goals, 39 assists for 28 points. So he's, like I said, he's not a stranger to when it comes to putting up points and scoring goals. And he was on that Chicago Wolves team with Steph Nace and Jalen Chatfield and Peter Kochetkov, where they won the 2022 Calder Cup. And in that season, he actually had 20 goals, 52 points in 68 regular season games for the Wolves. And he had, 9 goals, 24 points in 18 playoff games on the way to them winning the Calder Cup. So like I said, Drury is not someone who's a stranger to putting up points and scoring goals. If he's given the opportunity to showcase his skills, that I do think he has, when given the chance, he can actually prove how good of a hockey player he really is. Really good IQ, is able to play on the transition really well. He's got above average, stick handling and able to control the puck and able to crash the zone and, have some decent zone entries too. And, he during the regular season, even in the playoffs, he was finding ways to score and goals and getting to the front of the net and, being, someone who could screen the goalie at some times. Like during the regular season, he was, mainly fourth line center for most of the season. Then come playoffs, he was in the second line center spot, and he did pretty well overall. Going from, your role was fourth line center for most of the season. Now you bumped up to second line center in the playoffs, and he did a pretty solid job, all things considered. And, for the fact that it was his first full season, you kind of see that there is offensive upside to him. And the problem is the fact with the Hurricanes, especially at center, they are kind of deep in that position. So you can't really, Sebastian Aho is your 1C, Jordan Stahl is your 3C. They were hoping, just very quickly we could do something at the second line center. Couldn't really do it. They tried to, Evgeny Kuznetsov for a little while, and then they just threw him down to the 4C spot and moved up Jack Drury. So, and, and what the Hurricanes are looking for is a bona fide second line center. So, I mean, for how Jack Drury is, like if he's given the opportunity to do what he can do, I think he has that offensive upside. Will they put him as a second line center? Who really knows? There could be a case where the quote unquote 3C spot could go to Jack, and then you can put Jordan Stahl on the fourth, because we all know Rod Brind'amour isn't really someone who numbers his lines. But I think if you give Jack Drury more time on the ice in terms of 5-on-5 play, even, get power play 2 time, maybe some penalty kill time, I think he has the ability to play a 200-foot game. He, like I said, everywhere he's gone, AHL, SHL, back in college at the NCAA level, he can score goals. He can put up points. It's just he's got given the opportunity and the time to do so. And for the fact that, in his first full season, you saw he had 8 goals and 74 games, but he could have had over 10 if he didn't have some of those taken away. So I think overall Jack Drury has a really good offensive upside. It's just, will the Hurricanes give him the opportunity to show? Because I think he has it. Like, they know from what he's done in the organization before, like I said, with the Chicago Wolves winning the Calder Cup and what he did in the regular season and in the playoffs, and just even this past season for 23-24, he showed the ability that he could be a guy who can win some faceoffs when necessary, and depending on what side of the zone. He's not afraid to get physical. He's not afraid to drop the gloves and get, and throw and get in some scraps to get the guys going, especially he did in the playoffs too. So I think, he fits the system well. He's someone that the Hurricanes and Rod Brind'amour could use a lot more of. And I think he, a good first full season with the team, I think he's shown enough to where it's like, okay, maybe we should give him more of a look. Maybe you put that as a second seed. You put him as a 3C. Who really knows? But honestly, I think Drury's got that upside that the Hurricanes could really use, and I think bringing him back next year would be a really good idea. Like I said, he's 24 years old. You kind of know what you're getting out of him, and I think there's more to him if they were able to unlock him and give him more opportunities to showcase his IQ that's been there all his entire career, and the fact that he's got some underrated speed, underrated zone entries. His vision's really good. I think you give him a chance and see where he does in bigger roles and more ice time, because I think he's got it there. And, from what AFP Analytics, we haven't checked them out. Please do so on social media. They're really, really good. They're, a group of guys over there who kind of break down and see what potential contracts, free agents are going to get in terms of hockey they've done the last few years. And it seems like, coming into the offseason for 2024, it's really popped off to where they're used a lot. And for good reason. They're really good at what they do in terms of what projected cap hits are going to look like, what total values are going to be. They even broke it down for some players where you're looking at a long-term or a short-term deal as well for guys who are RFAs and stuff like that. So what they're projecting for Jack Drury for a short-term deal, which, some would consider a bridge deal, would be a 2-year, $2.220 million contract, and that's per season, which would take up 2.52% of the cap space. Now, projected overall, that'd be $4.441 million for all 2 seasons. But if you're looking at it in terms of what an AAV would look like, it would be a 2 by 2.22. I know it's a lot of twos, but honestly, I think that'd be a really good short-term bridge deal if you want to you want to give him 2 years to put him in a bigger role, see if he can thrive in that role for a longer period of time. And then if it does work out, he's going to be 26 years old. Then you can go and give him a bigger extension where you're looking at $3.5–4 million. So if you want to look at a short-term bridge, especially coming off an ELC where he had his first full career year with the Hurricanes, I think a 2 by 2.22 would perfectly work if you want to go in terms of that direction of, here's your bridge, here's your prove-it deal. Let's see what you can do for 2 more full seasons with us in the lineup after the first full year that he had in 23-24. Now, the other projected salary that they gave Jack Drury was their long-term, and that was a 4-year, $3.407 million cap hit per season, which would be 3.87%. And then that projected total is $13.629 million. Now, a 4 by 3.4 isn't a bad deal in terms of if you want to lock him up a little bit longer and they'll put him around 28 years old. A 3.4 isn't too bad. It's not a lot. Yeah, it's a big jump from his ELC of 925. Now you're kind of almost into the 3.5 range. That could be okay if you want to go long term for 4 years and then you kind of know what you're going to get from the next 4 years, or would you almost give him that as the deal after the bridge, where you go maybe 3.5 or even $4 million for a longer term when he hits 26, and then maybe a 4-year deal like that could put him to 30 on his second deal if you want to back it up after the 2 by 2.22. So overall, I mean, both of those deals would be kind of okay for the Hurricanes overall if you want to go for that long-term 4 by 3.4 or that 2 by 2.22. If it was me, I would kind of go for the short term, that 2-year deal, and just give him some extra time, see what he can prove. And, he's going to be 26 when that contract expires. And maybe if he's proven himself, then you go for that 4 by 3.4 or that 4 by 4, which would take him to when he's 30. I think that'd be the most ideal contract. Now, if you want to give him that 4-year deal, that works too, because you got him locked up for a while until at least 28, and then go from there and figure it out. But if you ask me, I think bringing back Jack Drury would be a good idea. Like I say, he just got done with the DLC. You know what he can do. He had his first full season with the team, but he does have a track record of being someone who can put up points when given the opportunity. And I think the Hurricanes do need to bring him back and let him try to show more of his offensive upside and show his overall game. And I think they might have a diamond in the rough that, why they picked him in the second round where they did. So overall, I think they should bring Jack Drury back. And I think either one of those deals will be good, especially that 2-year bridge, just to give him some more time to prove himself. Now, another guy we got to talk about is someone who's made it very interesting in terms of if do give him a bridge deal, or do you just bring him, or you just back up the Brinks truck and just give him the next 8 seasons. And that will be Seth Jarvis. And we'll talk about him here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Guys, we got to talk about FanDuel. And for me, I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games in terms of the NHL. While we do have baseball that's still ramping up, we also got NASCAR and golf and a bunch of other sports as well. But in terms of hockey, unfortunately, we're going to be done very, very soon. And the sports aren't sporting like I want them to when it comes to the fact, like I said, we're going to be having less games. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. And all I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said at the end of segment 1, we are going to talk about Seth Jarvis. And you know me, I've talked about him pretty much on past episodes as well. The fact that you look at the career season that he had, while being hurt, 33 goals, 34 assists for 67 points in 81 games, 13 power play goals, 9 game-winning goals, 2 shorthanded goals, 9 points in 11 games in the playoffs. This guy did it on a torn labrum, torn rotator cuff, broken finger. What more can you really say about Seth Jarvis? And this is the one guy, it's going to be very interesting to see what his contract's going to be. So he just ended his, just ended his 3-year, $4.275 million ELC contract where he was a 1.394 AAV they signed back in December of 2020 with the Carolina Hurricanes, and now he, 13th overall pick. Honestly, a huge deal in the 2020 draft. Now this is going to be where things get very interesting in terms of the fact that he just had a career year, like I said, 33 goals, 34 assists, 67 points, 81 games, was a plus 23. AFP Analytics, for his short-term deal, it's a 3-year, $6.34 million deal, which is the AAV, which would take up 7.21% of the cap. That is a total projected value of $19.021 million. Now, his long-term deal, it's a $7-year, $55.478 million total value contract, and that AAV, which would take up 9.01%, comes out to $7.925 million. Now, from what Eric Tulsky has been said on record in terms of when he's talking to, Luke DeCock, Jeff Merrick, guys like that, they want to keep Seth Jarvis for 8 years. They're not really down to the fine details yet of what the actual number is going to be in terms of the contract of the AAV, and if they can get to the 8 years. Now, 7 is very doable. If you want to go for the long-term deal to lock him up until he's 29, 8 years will put him at 30. Honestly, for the season he had, you're okay with backing up the Brinks truck for $7.925 million. And if you really want to round it up to 8, you can give him an 8x8. Signed, sealed, delivered. There you go. You're done. You got him locked up until he's 30, and you give him $8 million after the season he just had. Even at 7 by 7.9 is still a pretty good contract as well if you want to go it that way. Now, you could lock him up, and you're like, okay, now we got him until he's at least 30. Or, like I said, there is that short-term deal, which is that you just got done with your ELC. You just had a career year. We want to see you keep building on it, and we got some other guys you got to take care about too. And Eric Tulsky did say that the Hurricanes are mainly focusing on their UFAs right now, but in terms of RFAs, he knows that Seth Jarvis is going to be here a long time. He says Seth Jarvis is going to be a Carolina Hurricane for a long time. They just got to figure out the UFAs, and then they're going to circle back and figure out Seth Jarvis. But he wants to keep him here. On record, he said 8 years. But there's potential where it could be 3 years at $6.34 million. The short term isn't bad either. You can be okay with that type of short term deal. I wouldn't be surprised if they went with that long term. And if it's a 7 by 7.9, perfect. There you go. If it's 8 by 8, even better. Then you got him locked up. You know what AAV you got him for the next 8 seasons. That carries him until he's 30, and that's giving him a bunch of years within Sebastian Aho's contract, what Jacob Slavin's potential contract is going to be, because I talked about it last week, where his potential contract that Elliot Freeman said was supposed to be 8 years by 6.5. So you give Jacob Slavin, after next season for 25-26, his will be an 8-year contract for 6.5, and that'll be going into year 2 of Jarvis's 8x8 if they go long term. So you have your cornerstone defensive, defenseman in Jacob Slavin, your number one guy, and then you got your young superstar in Seth Jarvis already locked up for 8 seasons as well. So that's really not a bad contract either. It's a foregone conclusion that Seth Jarvis is going to be with the Carolina Hurricanes. It's just you give him that 3-year, $6-point-something million deal, and okay, we're going to give you your big boy contract. It's just you got to wait until you're 25 because we have all these other UFAs and guys we got to take care of. And Seth Jarvis has said it too. There's guys ahead of him they're going to need to get done before he does, and he doesn't really care if it's a huge deal. He just wants to stay in Carolina, but he knows that there's other guys that are going to come before him, and he's okay with that. So even he knows he wants to be here, and he knows he's going to have to wait a little bit. But do you give him we'll pay you your big boy contract after 3 seasons after we take care of everyone else, or it's the fact of no, we know what you're going to be. You've proven it already this past season. Now we're going to back up the truck and give you your money, and then we got to have you locked up until you're 30. That could potentially work too. So either way, for what AFP Analytics is saying, both of those contracts would be really good if you want to go for a 3-year 6 by something. 3 years at $6.7 million, or do you give him that 7.7, 7 years by that 7.9 million, or the fabled 8x8? Either way, those are great contracts to have. And it's like I said, it's Seth Jarvis is like the easiest guy in terms of the RFAs, where it's like it's a slam dunk for the Canes to get him done. So I'm not really worried about that. The dude played over 60 games hurt with a torn rotator cuff, a torn labrum, broke his finger in the playoffs in round 1 against the Islanders, and still did what he did. So just absolute like ice in the veins of what this kid is at 22 years old. So it's like I said, Seth Jarvis is going to be a Hurricane for life. The contracts that AFP is projecting are really good. Even that 8-year, $8 million per season would be a perfect contract for him. Back up the truck, give him the money, lock him up until he's 30 at least, and then give him that last contract when he turns that age. So that's a foregone conclusion. It's the easiest one in terms of the RFAs to look at when it comes to signing guys. Now, that being said, we're going to go to the guy that I've talked about a lot over the last couple weeks. I know everyone's like, okay, we want the saga to end. I believe me, I hear you there. It's just in terms of RFAs that we got to talk about for this episode. The only other really big RFA that we have to talk about is Martin Necas. So we are going to talk about him in segment 3 here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions to play. eBay Guarantee Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back to a segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Just like I said at the end of segment 2, we are going to start talking about Martin Necas. Now, Martin Necas is the 25-year-old winger that everyone keeps talking about, and how everyone and their mother, it seems like, has been linked to possibly asking about him. We're talking the Bruins, the Red Wings, the Canucks, the Flames, LA Kings. It seems like almost everyone is in the sweepstakes for Martin Necas, and he's the former 12th overall pick in the 2017 entry draft by the Carolina Hurricanes. He is also going to be an RFA this upcoming offseason. He is arbitration eligible as well, just like Seth Jarvis and Jack Drury. He's just finishing his bridge deal that he signed back in August 2022. That was a 2-year, $6 million deal, which was an AAV of $3 million. Now, this past season, he did have 24 goals, 29 assists for 53 points in 77 games. While he had 4 goals, 9 points, and 11 playoff games in terms of his regular season, this was a dip-off where he had 71 points in 82 games. Now, he did miss 5 games this year after getting hurt after the Rangers game in practice. He did finish a -9, where the previous year he did finish with a +5. And also he did have his numbers kind of drop a little bit in terms of overall in the regular season and the playoffs, where he was power play 1 in 22-23, and in the 23-24 season, he played a lot of power play 2 minutes and was mainly on the second line. Now, it has been mentioned before that he hasn't said it publicly, but he's kind of said it privately that he wants to move on from the Hurricanes. Teams have inquired about him. Now, the Hurricanes said they do want to try to bring him back, but there's potential he could get traded too. So it's up in the air. So in terms of this practice and this experiment of, let's say the Hurricanes do figure out something with him and they do bring him back, what a potential deal could look like. Now, from what I've heard in circles of Elliot Friedman, Merrick, LeBron, people from The Athletic who cover other teams, they're saying that he's looking at a $6.5 million to $7 million deal in terms of that's what we want for the AAV with 6 or 7 years attached to it. Now, will the Hurricanes do it? Who really knows? And even Pierre LeBrun even said some team could get crazy out there and give him an offer sheet, and will the Hurricanes match it? Because if not, then they get draft picks, and that's mainly about it. Now, in terms of what AFP Analytics is projected for Martin Necas, starting with his short term would be a 3-year deal, which would be 7.09% of the cap hit, and that comes out to an $18.726 million total value. In terms of the AAV, the annual average value, that'd be $6.242 million per season for that 3-year deal. Like I said, that'd be 7.09%. Now, as a long term, and this is where it kind of fits into the bill of what he wants, this would take up 8.55% of the cap. And this is a 7-year, $52.647 million deal, which the AAV comes out to 7.521. So you're looking at, from what AFP Analytics is thinking, it's either going to be a 3-year, $6.242 million, or a 7-year, $7.521 million deal, where it takes either 7% or 8.5% of the Hurricanes cap. Now, here's the thing. I like Martin Necas. I want him to stay. But the thing that a lot of people, I think, from what I've seen and what I've heard in circles and in social media and talking to other writers, is the fact that he's got some high-end speed. It's no doubt he's probably got the 99th percentile speed. He's got really good stick handling. He does have a good jump in his zone. He's clutch in overtime and stuff like that. Now, the thing is, his stick handling does get him into some trouble where he does give up the puck a lot more. Sometimes he doesn't really pass what he needs to, and when he does pass, he drops the puck back to, unfortunately, no man's land territory, and it leads to turnovers. He is also a very streaky player at times as well, where he's lighting up in bunches, and he is also not doing much in bunches as well. Defensively, he's okay. He's not the greatest. He's not much of a physical guy. Board battles, he's not one of his strong suits. And he wants to play center, but the Hurricanes won't let him play center. Internationally, he's fine, but in the AHL, he's under 40% for the most part. He's either in the low 4s or in the upper 30% range. And the Hurricanes kind of want their centers to be more defensively minded as well. They want to go two-way center. Martin Necas overall is not a two-way center. Winger-wise, he's not really much of a two-way either. He's very offensively driven. Like I said, he's got stick handling for days. He's got the scoring touch when he shoots. It's just there's points where he doesn't shoot, and then when he does pass, it kind of leads to turnovers. And defensively, it's kind of not there either for the most. It's a weird range to be in terms of Martin Necas, where, like I said, he's good. And I see why people want to keep him around. I do want to keep him as well. But it's also being realistic of the fact that he's an up and down player for the most part. Like I said, he from private behind the scenes, it seems like he wants to go somewhere else, and teams have inquired about him. Now, if you're the Hurricanes, do you want to keep him around knowing that he's not really happy to be there because of his ice time and how he was used? Do you want to deal with that? Or, do you want to move him? Because from what Pierre LeBrun's saying, the Hurricanes have gotten some concrete trade offers. It's just nothing they said yes to. If the player wants to go, and if there's a team willing to, give the Hurricanes a bunch of assets for him, that might be the way to go. And because if he doesn't want to be here, and if you're able to get something back, that might be the play for the Hurricanes. But like I said, in terms of this experiment, what could potential deals could be looking like for the Hurricanes? Like I said, you're looking at the short-term 3 by 6.42 or the 7 by 7.52. Now, the long term would probably make more sense because that's the term and amount of money that Martin Necas wants. He wants a 7 by 7 for the most part. Do you give him that 7 by 7.5? That's a lot of money for a guy who did have a dip in points. And like I said, he did play 5 less games. yes, his ice time was dropped down, but he did lead the team, in 22-23 with 71 points. It's a weird area to be in of like, do you give a guy like that 7 years at $7 to $7.5 million? Who, that's, I said, it's a tough spot to be in because it's like, that's a lot of money. You're going from 3 per year to 7.5. You're talking a big $4 to $4.5 million bump up for a player like that who's had one really good season and then one season a little bit of a drop off, but then includes an injury and ice time getting limited. So it's a tough spot to be in for the Hurricanes if you want to look at getting Martin Necas to stay long term. Like I said, I would like him to stay. Projected cap money wise, I think he's in terms of what the Hurricanes need to take care of. I think he's almost played himself out of Carolina in terms of what he's asking for to what analytically, in terms of what the Hurricanes have to deal with, is probably looking at a different number to what he wants. And how he's used is not what he wants, but that's what the Hurricanes need him to be. And I think it's just a tough situation overall. Do I see him coming back? I would say right now it's 75% says no, he's not going to be here. But who knows? He could potentially stay if he talks to Eric Tulsky and see what the Hurricanes want to do too. But in terms of what AFP Analytics are saying, you're looking at 3 years at 6+, and then you're looking at 7 by 7.5. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what the Hurricanes do, and if they do bring Martin Necas back. But let me know in the comments what you think. Do you see all three guys coming back in Drury, Jarvis, and Necas, or do you see a combination of the three, like maybe one comes back or two comes back? So let me know which guys do you think the Hurricanes are going to be able to keep. Is it all? Is it some? And what type of contract do you kind of see that the Hurricanes give them? Do you agree with AFP Analytics' numbers? So like I said, let me know in the comments, and let me know what you guys think about that. But that will wrap up this Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on One True Zach. You can follow the podcast at @Ella_Hurricanes. There's a link tree in my bio where you can check out all my articles and newsletters over at the Hockey Writers. You can check out my AHL stuff at the Calder Times. You can find links to listen and watch my other podcasts, the Searchcast. And in terms of this podcast and show, you can check out the links where you can listen to this podcast. Make sure you leave a 5-star rating and review, because if you do, I might just read it on the show. And if you're on the YouTube side of things, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss a show. Leave a thumbs up button to let me know if you guys liked it as well. And make sure to share with other Caniacs as well, because we want to make them everydayers just like you. We are almost up to 890 subscribers, and we're on the road to 1,000. And once we hit 1,000 subscribers on the YouTube side of things, I might just do something special for you guys. But I hope everyone enjoyed the Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. I hope everyone enjoys their Monday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.